Hello guys, welcome back to our anime explainer. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Soul Land 2 Peerless Tang Men based on novel. So let's start. However, the four-titled Douluo was surprised to see Shusansha smile at this moment, when they had expected to see him panic. They all saw a smile that sent shivers down their spines. Shusansha suddenly turned around and exposed his back to these people in front of him. He waved his Xuanwu shield in the air as his fourth soul ring lit up. This was one of Shusanshi's most powerful skills, Xuanwu displacement. After releasing a flash of light, Shusansha disappeared before their eyes. All of those soul masters, who were taking orders from Xue Kuei and Xueleng, were stunned. Did he disappear just like this? Even though they did not know how he had escaped, they were certain that his peers from Tang sect as well as his mother would perish under the huge wave of attacks. Did he really run away, just like that? However, they were forced to dismiss that possibility at the next instant. After Shusansha had disappeared, another figure instantly appeared in his place. Following which, this figure released an invincibly powerful light. The surrounding air suddenly became intensely cold as the temperature of the entire hall plunged instantly. Countless icicles were released at Xue Kuei and Xueleng from that person's body. Those icicles were at least 3 meters long as they penetrated and blocked every single soul skill that was coming his way. Even the four-titled Douluo had no choice but to use their soul skills to attack those icicles to prevent them from piercing their bodies. The man who was dressed in a white long robe was able to block all of their attacks with a single soul skill after appearing in Shusanshi's former position. Those 3-meter-long icicles were so strong that the Soul Sages and Soul Douluo could not hold them off. In fact, they contained so much energy that even the four-titled Douluo were thrown back by the sheer force they exerted on them. Spiritual blast. The young man dressed in white announced with a low voice. Following which, the surrounding air suddenly became illusory. Every single soul master felt as though his or her head was hit by a gigantic hammer. Their bodies started to tremble vigorously as loud grunts of pain could be heard. Those soul masters who tried to release more soul skills after their previous ones were destroyed by the icicles found themselves interrupted. The soul sages naturally suffered the most, as they were instantly forced out of their martial soul true bodies before stumbling backward. Blood immediately gushed out from their mouths and nostrils. It was apparent that they had sustained serious injuries. Mass enfeeblement. A circle of white light expanded into the surroundings before enveloping Xueleng, Xue Kuei and the rest. A powerful sense of fatigue started to plague them as the white light sapped their energy. It seemed as though the young man dressed in white wanted to inform them of his every move as he announced once again, spiritual confusion. 4 vortexes appeared on the four-titled Douluo's bodies at the same time. Their sudden appearance seemed to have stunned the 4 of them. The young man raised his right hand as a deep blue light appeared in his palm. The dark blue light was shining from a long blue sword. Following which, the young man slashed out with his sword as the four-titled Douluo transformed into ice sculptures. Because of how powerful the slash was, the ice sculptures flew backward after they formed. How powerful must that slash be to take down four-titled Douluo with a single blow? However, that was not the end. Blizzard. Countless snowflakes started to form out of nowhere in the air. Following which, a powerful blizzard began to gush towards the group of soul masters. Even though the temperature in front of the young man had plummeted to below -200 degrees Celsius at that instant, the temperature behind him was still warm and comfortable. After being weakened by mass enfeeblement and spiritual blast, the soul sages and Soul Douluo, who were used to winning their battles, could only huddle up as they tried to warm their already frozen blood by mustering their soul power and soul skills to protect themselves. Unfortunately, all of their methods were futile. It was impossible for them to change the outcome under the wrath of the powerful blizzard. Ultimately, they would all inevitably collapse due to the insanely low temperature. The only difference was when they would collapse, because they all had different cultivations. Within 10 seconds, the side of the hall that was in front of that young man had turned into a world of ice. It took less than a minute for that person to finish all of them off. Now, the entire hall had become silent. At this instant, two familiar figures brought Xueling and Xuekui into the hall. Xusanxia was holding onto Xuekui, while a young lady who had long violet hair grabbed Xueling's armor. Both Xueling's and Xuekui's heads were lowered. It was apparent that they had already lost all hope. The young man dressed in white turned around and looked at the group of people from Tang's sect before smiling. "Hi, did you miss me?" Nan Xiuqiu rushed forward and punched his chest unapologetically. "Why did you only come now?" The young man revealed an awkward smile. "Can't you be a little bit gentler?" Nan Xiuqiu rolled her eyes before replying, "If you want tender love, go and look for your Wutong." "Wutong, I'm so glad you're okay." "That's right." The young man was none other than Huo Yuhao. And the young lady who had entered the hall with Xusanxia was naturally Tang Wutong. The only reason why Xusanxia had smiled in the face of immense danger earlier was that he had sensed Huo Yuhao's spiritual detection sharing. Huo Yuhao had told him to switch places with him. Hence, he performed the Xuanwu displacement to send Huo Yuhao into the hall. Afterward, everything became really straightforward. The powerful soul masters, who had troubled the rest of them, were nothing to Huo Yuhao. He could take them down extremely easily. Yi Gai no longer tried to meditate, as she stood up and looked at Huo Yuhao in the same way as Ji Juechen. Both of them were staring at Huo Yuhao as though he was a freak. Huo Yuhao let out an awkward laugh. "Can both of you stop looking at me like that? I'll really start to blush." Ji Juechen stomped forward towards Huo Yuhao before glaring at him with his piercing eyes. "Tell me. How did you do it? Even if you became a transcendent Douluo, you should not have been able to pull that off. In fact, how did you take all of them down without any powerful soul skills? I can't believe it." This was probably the longest sentence the sword fanatic had constructed in a long time. In fact, he was stammering while he was speaking to Huo Yuhao. Huo Yuhao smiled and said, "Wutong and I have regained our martial soul fusion. Now, the effects of our martial soul fusion can still last for 10 seconds under our control even if we have been separated. Hence, what all of you just witnessed in the last 10 seconds of the battle was pure fighting power, which was unbelievably close to that of an ultimate Douluo. That, coupled with my ultimate martial soul, was more than enough to take all of them down. More than a month ago, before he had even become a transcendent Douluo, he was able to force the entire Sun Moon Empire army to retreat by himself. There was no doubt that he would be able to do a lot more with his enhanced abilities. In fact, he no longer needed to wear his icy war god's armor to destroy all of these titled Douluo, who were picking on Xusanxia and his friends. After all, the strongest titled Douluo among them was only rank 92. However, these people were still alive even though they had been frozen by Huo Yuhao's ultimate ice. Nonetheless, their lives were now entirely in Huo Yuhao's hands. Xusanxia threw Xuekui to the ground and looked away. He was so angry that he didn't want to look him in the eye. He had long developed a murderous intent against Xuekui and Xueling. At this instant, Xueling Xuan walked towards Xusanxia and asked, "Sanxia, who is this? Is he a senior from the academy? Why does he look so young? Senior, do you mind sharing with me how you take care of your skin?" An awkward look immediately formed on Xusanxi's face. Even though he loved his mother a lot, he could not deny that she wasn't really sharp at times. Of course, he also knew that if his mother were a little sharper, his father would not have been able to bring her away from the palace. Hence, he was still glad that his mother was someone who was not very sharp mentally. "Come on, mother. He's not my senior. He's a fellow disciple. To be more precise, he is actually my junior brother. His name is Huo Yuhao. Do you remember the news that came not too long ago? He is the eyes of the Azura, the person who managed to win 7 consecutive battles against Transcendent Douluo and Class 9 Soul Engineers by himself. He is Huo Yuhao, the Spirit Ice Douluo. This is Tang Wutong, the Dragon Butterfly Douluo." Xueling Xuan's eyes widened in disbelief as she stared at Huo Yuhao before looking back at Xusanxia. Huo Yuhao immediately moved forward with Tang Wutong to greet her. "Hello, Mrs. Xu. Xuan was still trying to take in the information her son had just shared with her. Suddenly, she turned around and slapped Xuanxi's arm. "You little rascal, you really are a failure. Look at him and how powerful he is. I can't believe you're actually older than him." At this moment, Xuanxia was not sure whether he should laugh or cry. "Mother, how can you compare me with freaks like him? My little junior brother is really a monster among monsters. I'm already doing quite well. I think it's important to be satisfied with the results of one's hard work, instead of always comparing oneself with others." Jiang Nan forced a cough as she spoke. "Sanxia and Mrs. Xu, don't you think we should settle the matters at hand first?" Sanxia froze before nodding. Afterward, he turned around and looked at Huo Yuhao as though he were waiting for instructions. Huo Yuhao shook his head and said, "I am your fighter for today. Here, I will only take instructions from you. I will do whatever you want me to. But you must be the one making those decisions. Of course, I can make them die anytime. Just let me know what you need me to do." Sanxia was a little stunned by what Huo Yuhao said. Afterward, he turned around to look at his mother. Xuan had become normal again. A murderous look formed on her face as she declared, "They deserve to die." Sanxia remained silent before shaking his head. He said, "I need all of you to stay here. Let me go out and get some people to come in. We need to find out what was actually going on before making decisions like these." Because the barrier outside the hall had already been removed by Huo Yuhao, news of Xuekui's and Xueling's betrayal was spread to the rest of the city within 15 minutes. An hour later, all of the Douluo Empire's generals and ministers in the city were gathered within the hall. Everything, including Xuekui and Xueling, was still as it was right after the battle. Sanxia made sure that no one shifted the ice sculptures, nor did he let the father and son leave. By now, both Xueling and Xuekui had given up all hope of surviving. There was no chance that they could escape from this huge group of powerful soul masters. As for the Class 9 soul engineer who was lurking outside, Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong had already tried their newly enhanced martial soul fusion skills on him. They had combined their powers and given him a blow of their Heavenly Emperor's hammer. As many would have expected, he did not survive that blow even though he was in possession of several defensive soul tools. In fact, Huo Yuhao felt that it was a shame that they had snuffed him out just like that. After all, a Class 9 soul engineer was literally a walking treasure trove. That soul engineer probably had several valuable soul tools on him. However, he had fallen from the sky before Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong could even rummage through his things. Sanxia sat on the throne as his mother, Xuan, stood by his side, while Huo Yuhao and the rest stood by the sides of the hall. The generals and ministers could definitely see what had happened while they were away. Even now, the temperature within the hall was still fairly low. In fact, every general and minister could not help but shiver after stepping into the hall. It was still not that bad for those ministers and generals who had a relatively high cultivation. On the other hand, those ministers and generals who were not soul masters had no choice but to shiver as they waited for the rest of the people to enter the hall. Xuekui and Xueling had been tied up by Huo Yuhao and thrown into the center of the floor before everyone. Both of their heads were lowered as they kept quiet. As for the other soul masters who had been transformed into ice sculptures, they were still frozen just as before. All of them were standing there in their original fighting stances before they had been frozen. What happened here? This was the same question that was on everyone's minds. Among them, there were still quite a few ministers and generals who could recognize Xuekui and Xueling. In fact, some of them did not seem to be very pleased with what they were seeing. "Prince Regent, what has happened here? Why are Xuekui and Xueling here? And what's with all of these ice sculptures?" The Prime Minister stepped out and asked after planting one of his knees on the ground. He could no longer hold it anymore, and wanted to know what was going on. He did not go down on both of his knees, because Sanxia was still not the emperor. Sanxia maintained his solemn expression as he asked, "Prime Minister, do you know who these two convicts are?" The Prime Minister replied, "Yes, I do know them." This is Duke Xueling, the provincial governor of the Tianhe province, while the other person is Duke Xuekue, the provincial governor of the Luoan province. Why are they? Shu Sancha spoke plainly. Do you still not understand why they are tied up like this? Those 30-odd ice sculptures were people they had brought in. Among them are 5 titled Douluo. Do you see the burn mark on the floor here? It was left behind by one of Xuekue's people whom we killed earlier. If you were to get some of our guards to do a search outside the hall, you would probably find the dead body of a Class 9 soul engineer. After hearing Shu Sanchi's explanation, everyone's jaws dropped. They definitely knew what it meant when he explicitly pointed out the Class 9 soul engineer. Those ministers and generals who had revealed a displeased expression were even more shocked after hearing what Shu Sancha had said. It was a known fact that other than Shrek Academy, which had 1 or 2 Class 9 soul engineers, the rest of the Class 9 soul engineers on the continent were all from the Sun Moon Empire. It was naturally impossible for Xuekue and Xueling to get someone from Shrek Academy to take orders from them. This made the answer extremely obvious. After all, the entire palace of the Douling Empire had just been destroyed by the Sun Moon Empire. On top of that, the entire royal family had been murdered by them. The entire Douling Empire definitely hated the Sun Moon Empire to the core. Rubbish. There is no Class 9 soul engineer. Even if there was one, he or she would have been on your side. If not, how would you be able to defeat us with so few people? We had so many titled Douluo with us. Xueling angrily repudiated Shu Sanchi's claims. He knew that he would really lose all hope of surviving if he did not try to persuade the ministers to join his side. Shu Sancha stood up before walking down the steps. Xueling, are you familiar with my background? Xueling turned his head and looked away from him. Shu Sancha said, I am from Shrek Academy, and was given the honor of being a member of this generation's Shrek's 7 monsters. The Sun Moon Empire's army was camped just outside Shrek City not too long ago. As for how we managed to destroy all of your minions, I would only have to reveal a single name to convince all of you that what I have said is true. As he spoke, he walked towards Huo Yuhao and explained, this person is my junior brother. I believe many of you must have met him before. Since that's the case, let me share his name with you. His name is Huo Yuhao. I believe all of you should know who he is, right? Huo Yuhao. The Prime Minister muttered to himself. But very quickly, he looked up again as a startled look formed on his face. Your Highness, didn't you mention to us that there was a person who had challenged the Sun Moon Empire to 10 one-on-one battles, and won 7 consecutive battles? That person eventually managed to force the War God Empress to admit defeat and retreat. Wasn't that person the Eyes of the Azura, the Spirit Ice Douluo, Huo Yuhao? Shu Sancha nodded and replied, that's right. He is Huo Yuhao. In addition, Yuhao has confirmed that the enemies who assaulted our palace and almost exterminated everyone within the royal family were the Imperial Dragon Soul Engineer Legion and the Evil Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion, the 2 Beast Lord rank Soul Engineer Legions of the Sun Moon Empire. Yuhao and Wutong went after the 2 legions together and managed to take down more than half of them. In fact, they even managed to kill the legion commander of the Imperial Dragon Soul Engineer Legion. What a joke! Xuekue exclaimed. Do you know how powerful the Sun Moon Empire's Beast Lord rank Soul Engineer Legions are? They are part of the hand that protects the nation, the strongest force the Sun Moon Empire possesses. Do you really think the 2 of them can take down those 2 Soul Engineer Legions, who destroyed the entire palace? Are the linked soul tools they carry around just for show? Shu Sancha, I can't believe you actually said something so absurd. In his last sentence, he purposely emphasized Shu Sanchi's surname. Shu Sancha burst into laughter that echoed within the entire hall. The ignorant should never be blamed. Do you know how powerful my junior brother is? Oh, that's right. You didn't even see how your minions, including the 4 titled Douluo, were destroyed by my little junior brother with a single soul skill. Perhaps I need to let you know that my junior brother is an ultimate Douluo. Do you understand what I have just said? An actual ultimate Douluo, who is only a little more than 20 years old. After hearing what Shusansha had said, everyone in the hall was shocked. Gasps of surprise could be heard from everywhere. At that instant, everyone turned their heads to look at Huo Yuhao. What was an ultimate Douluo? Ultimate Douluo was so rare that they pretty much existed only in myths. The most powerful soul master in the entire Douling Empire was the heavenly son Douluo. Even then, he had not even reached rank 98, and was definitely not an ultimate Douluo. But now Shusansha was claiming that the young man, before them who was only a little older than 20 had already attained the rank of an ultimate Douluo. All of them simply could not believe what he had just said. In fact, even the Prime Minister seemed a bit doubtful about Shusanshi's words. After all, how was that possible? In the entire history of the Douluo continent, there was only a single instance when a 20-year-old young man had attained the rank of an ultimate Douluo. In fact, they were not the only ones who were shocked. Even Huo Yuhao could not believe what Shusansha had just said. He knew he was no ultimate Douluo. After all, he had just become a transcendent Douluo. What is third senior brother doing? Shusansha gave a light chuckle before continuing. I know all of you cannot believe what I have just said. However, have you ever considered what the news from Shrek Academy was suggesting? My little junior brother won 7 consecutive battles, and defeated evil soul masters and class 9 soul engineers. Among them was Zhongli Wu, the leader of the Holy Ghost Church. Even Zhongli Wu was defeated by my little junior brother. From that day onwards, my little junior brother received the title of Spirit Ice Douluo. Zhongli Wu was previously ascertained by the Academy to be a rank 98 transcendent Douluo. This definitely lends credibility to what I have just said. It is also common knowledge that evil soul masters are usually more powerful than soul masters at the same rank as them. Hence, the fact that he was defeated by my little junior brother simply means that he is a real ultimate Douluo. There's no other possible explanation. As for whether the Imperial Dragon Soul Engineer Legion and the Evil Tyrant Soul Engineer Legion were really attacked, and whether their Legion commander was actually killed, all of you can go ahead and investigate the matter. It shouldn't be too hard to find out the truth. As Shusansha spoke, he became even more confident as he destroyed all of the arguments Xue Kuei had put forth. Everything Shusansha had raised was substantiated with facts. Huo Yuhao's feat before Shrek City was definitely true, and could never be faked. If Zhongli Wu was really defeated by Huo Yuhao, what else could it mean? Besides, there were also soul masters among the generals and ministers before Shusansha. They naturally knew that battles consumed a lot of soul power. Prior to facing Zhongli Wu, Huo Yuhao had already taken on several transcendent Douluos. Even though Ma Xiaodao had not attained the transcendent Douluo rank, her ultimate fire martial soul gave her powers that were almost on par with that of a transcendent Douluo. Even then, Huo Yuhao was somehow able to secure consecutive victories without any significant rest between the battles. Under such circumstances, the only logical explanation was that Huo Yuhao was an ultimate Douluo. An ultimate Douluo. An ultimate Douluo was actually standing behind Shusansha. It was important to note that an ultimate Douluo had been the most powerful force of destruction before the appearance of Class 9 Soul Engineers. Before the Sun Moon Empire's recent rise, no other place, other than Shrek Academy, had ultimate Douluo. How powerful was an ultimate Douluo? It was rumored that an ultimate Douluo could shift mountains and fill the ocean. He or she would be able to destroy an entire city in the blink of an eye. If an ultimate Douluo were to support the rule of an emperor, it would be the best deterrence against any people who harbored ill intentions against the empire. Even though soul engineers were increasingly well regarded and had almost overtaken the status of soul masters in terms of prestige, everyone was starting to understand how a powerful soul engineer must first be a powerful soul master. This was a fact that Shrek Academy had disseminated to the rest of the continent. This was exactly why the Sun Moon Empire was so anxious to start the war. In fact, they had no choice but to attempt to conquer the entire continent in the shortest amount of time. Once the three empires' technological development started to pick up speed, they would definitely be able to overtake the Sun Moon Empire with the huge number of soul masters they had. However, no one knew how long they would need before they successfully overtook the Sun-Moon Empire. Hence, they could only try to conquer the entire continent while they still had an absolute advantage over the other empires. It was only after they had conquered the empire that they could be freed from all of these worries. But when that happened, the Sun-Moon Empire would also have no choice but to admit that Shrek Academy's theory was right. They would have to merge the development of soul tools and soul masters. Hence, Ultimate Douluo was still the most powerful existence in the entire world. In fact, only a Class 10 Soul Engineer could be compared to an Ultimate Douluo. However, there was no record of a single Class 10 Soul Engineer in the history of Soul Engineers. Hence, Ultimate Douluo were definitely the strongest in the entire continent. Hence, when the ministers and generals present in the hall started to believe that Huo Yuhao was an Ultimate Douluo, they changed the way they looked at Shusansha. After seeing this transformation, Xue Kuei and Xue Ling revealed grave expressions on their faces. They had not expected things to turn out this way. Also, they had not even known that Huo Yuhao was an Ultimate Douluo. Today, when they had brought their most powerful underlings with them along with the Class 9 Soul Engineer from the Sun-Moon Empire, they had planned to go all out to take down Shusansha and his friends. After all, Shusansha was from Shrek Academy, and they didn't know what kind of reinforcements the Academy would send to assist or avenge him. They knew they would definitely not be able to go up against the Academy. Hence, they knew that they had to kill Shusansha after taking control of the situation before seizing the palace. And when that was done, both father and son would be able to seize the military and then the throne. Unfortunately, they had failed. And good things never happen to those who failed. Shusansha strolled towards Xue Kuei and Xue Ling before speaking plainly. There is little royal blood left in the Douluo Empire. Yet both of you try to launch a coup for your own selfish reasons right after the Sun-Moon Empire has threatened our empire. How dare the two of you try to lead your people to attack me? Neither of you can be spared. Your Highness, no, the Prime Minister sensed that something bad was about to happen, but he was already too late. Shusansha had raised both of his hands and placed them on Xue Kuei's and Xue Ling's heads. At this instant, a few people rushed out from the group of generals as they tried to stop Shusansha. However, a white figure flashed before them. The surrounding temperature plunged again, as those generals were instantly turned into ice sculptures. In fact, no one had even seen how Huo Yuhao managed to do it. There were actually quite a few soul masters with 7 or 8 rings among the generals. However, even they could not help but shudder after sensing the powerful soul power fluctuations radiating from Huo Yuhao's body. Following which, 2 loud thuds could be heard as both Xue Kuei and Xue Ling started to bleed from their mouths and noses before collapsing onto the ground. Shusansha took out a handkerchief before using it to wipe his hands, which were not stained with their blood at all. It is a fact that both Xue Kuei and Xue Ling tried to launch a coup against our empire. They deserved to be sentenced to death. However, because of the contributions their family and ancestors made for the empire, and how royal blood is currently scarce within the empire, their families shall be spared. However, their families will be demoted to commoners. Is everyone agreeable with my verdict? The culprits were already dead. Besides, there was an Ultimate Douluo standing behind Shusansha. Only a fool would dare to go against what he had just announced. Shusansha spoke plainly. I know some of you in the hall have some links to Xue Kuei and Xue Ling. However, right now, our empire is short of talent and manpower. Hence, I can pretend as if nothing had happened to preserve the few resources our empire still possesses. I hope that all of you can value your lives and commit to the betterment of our empire. Prime Minister, I will leave it to you to decide who shall take over command of Xue Kuei and Xue Ling's troops. Yes, Your Highness. The Prime Minister acknowledged with an unwilling look on his face. Following which, Shusansha threw the handkerchief in his hand onto the face of the dead Xue Kuei. Even though the internal conflict within the empire has been settled, we still have external problems to deal with. However, I must admit that I'm not the best at leading an army or fighting wars. I believe that all of you can definitely do that better than me. I must also admit that the internal conflict started because of the power vacuum formed due to the lack of an emperor. Shui Kuei and Shui Ling believed that I was greedy for power. They did not want a person with the surname of Shu to take away the empire built by the Shui family. This was the most important reason why they wanted to start a coup. I found it hilarious, because I had never wanted to become an emperor. I have always been living a free and easy life. So let me now lay down a few important things. As he spoke, Shu Sansha raised his hands and took the purple gold crown off his head. Following which, he returned to the throne and placed the crown on the seat. Now that the internal affairs of the empire have been temporarily stabilized, I think it's time for all of you to decide who shall inherit the throne. My mother will definitely be staying in the empire, and she will make the final decision as to who shall become the new emperor. I will now give up my Prince Regent title. From today onwards, Shu Sansha shall not have any ties or relationship to the Douluo Empire. I have already done enough as someone who possesses royal blood. After finishing his sentence, Shu Sansha walked to the side and grabbed Jiang Nanan's hand. Following which, he sauntered out of the hall. Every single minister and general was shocked by what they had just witnessed. What is going on? Is he quitting? Did he just quit his appointment as the Prince Regent and turn down his potential position as the emperor? Right now, Shu Sansha was the only male with royal blood in the entire Douluo Empire. Because of what Shui Kuei and Shui Ling had done, their descendants no longer had a chance of succeeding the throne. What will happen to the empire now that Shu Sansha is leaving? Who's going to become the emperor? The prime minister, who was usually very calm and composed, started to panic as he knelt down on the ground immediately. Your Highness, please stay. The ministers and generals knelt down in unison as they exclaimed, Please stay, Your Highness. Shu Sansha held Jiang Nanan's hand as he stopped walking. I am both a member of Shrek Academy and a member of the Tang sect. I don't usually spend my time mulling over political matters. In fact, I have always been a happy-go-lucky person. But ever since I have arrived at the Douluo Empire, I have stopped smiling. Every day, I am suffering under the immense pressure that comes with my position. In addition, all of you have never given me your fullest support. But I understand why you chose to do that. After all, my surname is Shu, not Shui. This is a fundamental difference, which is almost irreconcilable. Also, I have never learned how to be an emperor, and have never wanted to learn it. I have no interest in becoming the emperor of the Douluo Empire. I have already made my decision, and none of you need to stop me. All of you should know that it would be futile. With my little junior brother around, none of you will be able to stop me. If all of you still want the Shui family to stay in power, please allow my mother to reign from behind the curtains. After all, she has the Shui surname. It will be a lot easier for you to accept her. In the future, after my wife has given birth to our first son, I will give him the surname of Shui. If no one opposes it, I will send him back here to receive his education in the Douluo Empire. That's all I have to say. Goodbye. After that, Shu Sansha held Jiang Nanan's hand before leaping upwards. Following which, both of them flew out of the palace from the hole in the roof. Following which, Huo Yuhao, Tang Wutong, Yi Gai, Nan Chochio, and Ji Juechen transformed into 7 streaks of light, and followed right behind them. Shui Ling Xuan sat down at where Shu Sansha used to sit as the edge of her mouth twitched on its own. She had not known that Shu Sansha was planning to do this. How could that little rascal not inform me of his plan in advance? And he just left like that. That's too unbecoming of him. After taking down all of his potential competitors, he left without even bidding a proper goodbye. This was his act of revenge for all the grievances he had felt. Even though the Douluo Empire's internal politics were now a lot more stable, how could they function without a leader? However, it was important to note that Shu Sansha did not leave in an entirely irresponsible fashion. After all, there was a reason why he had made a proper introduction for Huo Yuhao before he left. He wanted to remind the ministers and generals that the Shui family had the support of an ultimate Douluo. In addition, his mother was backed by Shrek Academy and the Tang sect. He wanted to let them know that they had better think twice before trying to seize political power from the Shui family. This was indeed a very shrewd move. However, Shui Lingxuan could not help but feel that it was a wasteful act from her son to give up the throne so easily. She came to the conclusion that different types of people were made for different things. After soaring up into the sky, Shu Sanxia broke out into a loud laugh. The smile which had been missing for a while had finally returned to his face. Jiang Nan Nan also revealed a gentle smile. She was definitely the person who understood Shu Sanxia best. She had seen how stressed he had become since he took on the Prince Regent position. Now that he was released from this stress, how could she not be happy? Sanxia, is it really okay for us to do this? Jiang Nan Nan asked softly. Shu Sanxia stopped laughing, but his smile was still on his face. What's wrong with this? We have already done our best to stabilize the empire. After all, what's so good about being an emperor? Do you really think I care so much about such things? In this world, there are only a few things I truly care about: my parents, family, friends, and you. What's the use of having so much power? It won't be as fun as touring the world with you. I am so glad I have broken free from the clutches of those fellows. Did you see how displeased they looked when we left? It was so hilarious. They looked as though they had just eaten shit. Little junior brother, have you taken care of those people? Huo Yuhao nodded and said, I have taken care of them. Those soul masters were merely taking orders from Shui Kuei and Shui Ling. I have interrogated them, and they have all expressed their desire to atone for their mistakes by working hard for their new leader. I have left a seal on them, and have passed the method to control the seal to your mother. If they are to harbor any malicious intent against your mother, they will die instantly. As the successor of a necromancer, it was not difficult for Huo Yuhao to plant such seals on people. With the help and support of those titled Douluo, Soul Douluo, and Soul Sages, Shui Lingxuan would be able to protect herself. This was also why Shu Sanxia was able to leave without any worries. I think I'd go crazy if I were to continue to stay at that place even after being freed from my responsibilities. Shu Sanxia admitted. Huo Yuhao tried to change the topic. Third senior brother, how could you betray me like this? When have I become an ultimate Douluo? Do you know that the words you have said today will spread across the entire continent like wildfire? Now that the Holy Ghost Church and the Sun Moon Empire are coming after me, I already have enough trouble on my plate. Shu Sanxia gave him a naughty chuckle. Come on. Even though you're not yet an ultimate Douluo, I believe you're not too much different from it, right? I might not have become a title Douluo, but I believe I can still tell certain things apart. The aura you released when you were dealing with those fellows was more or less on par with that of an ultimate Douluo. The fact that you were able to freeze so many powerful soul masters with just a single soul skill means that your fighting power is comparable to that of an ultimate Douluo. On top of that, you have already told me what your martial soul fusion with Wutong can accomplish. So you can stop pretending to the rest of us. The two of you are now somewhat equivalent to an ultimate Douluo. In this case, I think the Tang sect will really need to depend on you in the future. In fact, I don't think the Academy will let you go so easily either. You'll probably become the master of the Sea Gods Pavilion in no time. After all, with great power comes great responsibility. This video will end here.